To start, this movie has a banger poster. Like, look how cool this is. What's up, bro? I'm Nick. Today we're going to be covering the complicated friendship between Colonel John Lawrence, played by Tom Conti, and Sergeant Hara, played by Takeshi Kitano. And we're going to take what works from it and inject it into our own works, or see how we can do that. So, as writers, I think that we tend to have a scene or several scenes in our head that we're like, oh, I can't wait until we get to this scene. And while there are countless memorable scenes in this movie, I think that the one that director Oshima really wanted to leave us, the audience, with was the one at the very end, the culmination between the friendship between Hara and Lawrence. When we first meet Lawrence and Hara, Lawrence is a British Army POW and Hara is a sergeant with the Empire of Japan and one of the higher level wardens in the camp. Hara tells Lawrence that he wants to show him something, and Lauren, not begrudgingly or anything like that, calmly follows Hara to whatever he wants to show him. But Hara doesn't leave without giving the other POWs a hard time. Hara takes Lawrence to two men laying on the ground, battered and bruised. Lawrence asks Hara why he's brought him there, and Hara says it's a secret. Lawrence says that if it's a secret, then why'd you bring me? And Hara says to be a witness. Now at this point, what we know about the characters is that Lawrence, despite being British, he can speak Japanese. And as we find out through the rest of the movie, Lawrence is seemingly the only bilingual POW that can speak English and Japanese. He serves as a bridge between cultures throughout the plot of the movie by translating for both sides, English to Japanese and Japanese to English. No doubt this earns him the respect from his fellow POWs and his captors, especially Hara. Hara chooses Lawrence out of hundreds of men at the camp to be his witness. Witness to what? Well, once Hara begins to instigate one of the men on the ground, it's not difficult to guess. Hara suggests to the man that he should unalive himself through seppuku, and that he'll even help him. Then Lawrence's compassion comes out of him, and he says Hara should not go through with this. Lawrence's compassion comes out of him, and he tells Hara not to go through with this. This is the first divide that we see in the movie between cultures. In Japanese tradition, seppuku allows the person committing it to regain his honor in the eyes of his peers at the cost of his life. Lawrence, having learned Japanese, almost certainly knows this, but he's not a weeb. But here in the West, we acknowledge that ending one's life isn't a solution to anything good. Instead, I think it's more so Hara telling him, this is my culture, and I want you to see it and experience it. That this is the correct way of life. The scene continues, and then Hara hits Lawrence, but only once he snitches on him. This is the introduction to their relationship and their ongoing dialogue on cultural differences. Hara and Lawrence talk twice more. In their second conversation, Lawrence asks Hara for help in watching over the soldier that was assaulted, but Hara says a Japanese soldier would never ask the enemy for help. In their third conversation, Hara asks Lawrence why he doesn't unalive himself, that he'd get more respect from him if he did. Lawrence goes on to explain the Western ideology of having to surrender to an enemy and being imprisoned, and how there's no shame in it. And at the end of the scene, when Hara's captain Yanoi enters, he and Lawrence hide together, not wanting to be seen. Truthfully, I think that this moment is rather out of self-interest for one another, because I don't think that Lawrence is supposed to be out of bed at this point, and then Hara is hiding, and why would he be hiding if he's not supposed to be there as well? Hara whacks Lawrence a little bit more, and then Lawrence is thrown in prison under suspicion of sneaking in a radio. When Lawrence learns that he'll die for this, despite not being the one who brought in the radio, Lawrence destroys the funeral altar Hara is praying at. Hara says nothing to him. The next time the pair speak is on Christmas, when Hara gets drunk and releases both Lawrence and Celius. This is something that Hara gets in trouble for, because Yanoi didn't want either of them released. Lawrence later sees Hara leave Java with half the POWs. This is the last time that they see each other for 4 years. And then after the war, Lawrence comes to visit Hara in prison. The roles are reversed. So much so that during the 4 years, Hara has learned English. I called that, by the way. I knew that Kitano could speak English. I knew it. The two meet with each other after all is said and done. Hara is set to be executed the following morning. He has less than 24 hours to live, and yet, he's made peace with his life and is ready to die. There's this complex feeling you feel when you're watching this scene, and it's difficult to describe. How does one describe a quiet understanding between two men who were enemies, prisoner and captor, and now confidants? While their position in terms of who is in the cell and who isn't is reversed, their relationship as two people has evolved past that. Not what I think you'd call friendship, but rather two men, after going through the trauma of war with one another, who arrive at a mutual respect for one another. They share a laugh reminiscing on those times and sit for a moment in perfect silence. Despite recognizing that they can both laugh about the past now, the past is also the reason why Hara will die next morning. But tonight, there's peace in the air. Lawrence hesitates before leaving him and tells him how this isn't an easy victory to take. The two men bow to one another, and Hara again wishes Mr. Lawrence a Merry Christmas. The emotions created in the scene are like expertly put together, and without like the full context of the movie, like you wouldn't be able to understand or appreciate like this scene by itself. How I would incorporate what we've discussed here today is don't be afraid to have a character's beliefs be king when writing a character, and then don't be afraid to write a morally gray character, and then don't be afraid to make a scene that is like incredibly hard to describe. The amount of emotions in it, it's too complex to put into words, but you know that it's gonna work. Sometimes telling someone what you want to write is kind of difficult because it's like, you know, the feelings attached to your story, attached to the characters, and then like especially like describing this ending scene where you end up writing something that's like the audience feels bad for like the bad guy's death, and they also feel like a sense of like peace and calm and acceptance and respect. Like if you can write something like that, then you shouldn't be watching this channel. Like what are you doing, dog? Like, but either way, subscribe.